Welcome into today's episode of Pushing the Pile. This show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Mike Renner, JP Acosta, Kyle Long. Today's show, every Wednesday show, we'll be going through power tiers. Not power rankings, power tiers. We're going to tier every team in the NFL, more accurate than power rankings, because while people love to debate 1 versus 2, 2 versus 3, at the end of the day, usually it doesn't really quite play out like that. And then we're also going to rank in power tier, power tier. Most entertaining quarterbacks in the NFL. First off the ball, I wanted to get to this since I saw it. We didn't have time on yesterday's show because it went so long. But Brian Callahan, we have this clip. We'll watch this clip and then we'll break down after.
Challenge on the aisle matter play where they moved out of bounds on the sidelines, and it looked like his elbow hit inbounds first.
Yeah, you got to get a foot inbounds too. Which we didn't have a clean look at whether his foot was down as well. An elbow doesn't equal 2 feet, so his foot would have had to come down as well. We didn't have a clean look, so the call from upstairs was that it wasn't more challenging.
This is my biggest fear as a player, guys.
Yes.
This is my biggest fear as a player because as a player, you're told you do your job, okay? They even said it in the best franchise, the best dynasty ever in New England, do your job. It was literally in the title of your job description is do your job. And we have guys who will handle the other stuff. No, you don't. And not only that, it's becoming evident that a lot of these guys are not aware of all the stuff that they should know. And like Kyle Shanahan, overtime, Super Bowl, Kansas City Chiefs. They had a Harvard grad as a captain, a veteran, Kyle Juszczyk. He didn't know either. You're going to tell me there's not somebody on any of these staffs who's going to step in and say, no, this is the rule, okay? Like, we do not need to, Ben Johnson, throw the challenge flag here. Obviously, it's not worth throwing the challenge flag. And that timeout came to bite you in the ass. Callahan, dude, got to have a guy. If you're going to be, if your thing is your thing, make sure somebody else got your blind spot. And that goes for any of these coaches because players are losing faith.
Yeah, there's 3 things here, in my opinion. First one, a head coach in the NFL does not know the catch rule. He himself is so sure that he's correcting a reporter on what the catch rule is. 2, the upstairs does not know the catch rule of, the guy he has looking at replays doesn't know the catch rule. Or 3, he doesn't have a guy upstairs and he just lied about it. I'm not sure which is worse, that he has a full booth of people upstairs who all said not to do it and don't know the rule themselves, or that he lied about having it upstairs. Either way, this is kind of the genesis. It feels like it's things like these, sound bites like these, that are how coaches get fired midseason, right? This is kind of every single time. It was not necessarily midseason, but like you're on your way out after a quote like this. And if your team is as bad as the Titans are, just because how do you win back over a fan base after you blatantly said, I don't know the NFL rules? It just feels difficult. And it's obviously, it's not, doesn't mean he doesn't know, it doesn't mean he can't be a good head coach in the NFL. But when your attention to detail is that lackluster, that is worrisome.
So there are a couple things I want you guys to remember. One, concerning Brian Callahan not knowing what a catch is. And 2, just the overall temperature check of the Brian Callahan era. The first one is, remember when Tom Brady thought that he had an extra down? Ooh. And he held up 4, he was fourth down. That's what this feels like. It feels like so stupid that it shouldn't be a thing. This shouldn't be a thing that an actual coach does. And it's sort of, and I hate to compare him to Mike Vrabel, who always had the upper hand when it came to the rules and bending the rules and knowing what exactly every rule was. But that lack of attention to detail, it reminds me of another thing with an AFC South team. Remember when Urban Meyer didn't know who Aaron Donald was? This is starting to feel real. All right, this is getting out of hand.
That felt fake, but it was real, right?
It felt fake. There was no way that you actually didn't know who Aaron Donald was. But
that's
in
like
a way,
Michael Parson. It's like Michael Parson.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? That's what this feels like with Brian Callahan and the Titans right now. Not only is he a head coach, you're a former offensive guy. You're supposed to know these rules. You're supposed to be the one who manages this offense, and you don't know what a catch is. That at this point, it's getting real like first coach fired for Brian Callahan right now.
When I was on the airplane the other day, there was some turbulence. Okay, coming back from Green Bay actually, and some turbulence. I woke up from my little snooze, and then I went right back to sleep because I know that there are certain checks and balances that these pilots have to go through, or there's certain checks that the airplanes have to go through. I wish that I could say, after seeing what I've seen over the course of the last few years with these head coaches, I wish that we had some sort of similar checks and balances, and that there should be positions on every single roster that are designated for that. We were talking before the show. Sorry, my camera's going out. We were talking before the show about whether or not teams have a replay guy upstairs. I don't have the answer for that because I was never upstairs. But they should, and there should be probably 3 to 4 other positions on the staff. You need to have a Mike Pereira on your staff who knows the rules. You need to have a replay guy. What other positions do you think there should be on these staffs that are mandated almost to help the product be better?
Well, most well-run teams have, sometimes it's a guy who does both, but a replay and clock management are like the two roles when to use your timeouts. And the clock management guy is timeouts, fourth down decisions, things of that nature. You hear like, who was it this week said, our analytics department said to go for it. Mike McDonald. He said, we got the call from upstairs, said go for it. We thought kicking the field goal there was the better option. That is basically, there's sometimes one guy, sometimes multiple guys that handle those, but those are the roles that get delegated, rightfully so, because if you're a head coach, you're on the football field, literally 10 feet away from the sideline. You don't want to be having to deal with clock management scenarios like that if you don't have to. You want to be worrying about managing the human being element and those parts of the game, because it's just a lot to put on your plate. And we've seen guys like Andy Reid, in the past really struggle with those sorts of things. Amazing head coaches not be able to do that well. But if you have one guy who that's his entire job, chances are he's going to be doing it extremely
There
well.
are a fleet of guys in Kansas City that are with Andy Reid all the time because they know that he is like the master Jedi in terms of the human element, as you put it, and the football element. But there's some details that go along the wayside, like Jimi Hendrix could play the shit out of a guitar, but I'm sure there was some stuff musically that like a classical instructor would nitpick about his game.
Yeah.
Andy Reid is Jimi Hendrix, and he's got a good fleet of people to clean up those blind spots. All these guys need them because they ain't all Andy Reid. And, that could be the difference in winning and losing.
Exactly. And I think that's the biggest thing here. You are actively closing your team's margin for error by just not knowing the rules. Yeah. We've seen all the time the great coaches in this league help widen the margin for error for their teams and maximize their chance of winning by just knowing the rules. Jim Harbaugh did that thing with the kicker last year, and it helped them win the game. That's the kind of stuff that separates a coach who can call plays, which Brian Callahan does, versus a good head coach. Those type of situations and those type of things. I do think this goes back to my theory that every coach should have to play Madden as a part of the job requirement.
Kevin O'Connell telling his guy to come out of the end zone. He's like, you look at me when you catch that ball because I will tell you. And that's a guy who played Madden. Okay.
It is interesting though, because these guys who Callahan's been in the NFL like since he graduated college, right? I mean,
27 years.
Because his father, Bill Callahan, was already an NFL coach, so he, got the job that way. He probably watches less football in terms of actually, live football. No, and that's when that's when you find out rules like that. He's watching a lot of All 22. He's watching a lot of it after the fact. But on live broadcast is really when you hone in your skills in terms of knowing game management, knowing the rules, and when you get exposed to a lot of that stuff. And so realistically, he's probably watched less football than your average guy on the couch who's just, a Titans fan is going to know the rules better than Brian Callahan just via, experience. So,
and people are probably like, why doesn't he watch Monday Night Football, Sunday Night Football? He's got to be, no. These guys get home after Sunday Night Football is over, and then they're back in the building at 6 you don't understand how much these guys work. And that's a really good point, Mike, that they're not hearing the broadcast, because that's where I learn a lot of new stuff and points of emphasis. Obviously, we have a seminar at the beginning of the season for our networks. Every network has one, and they bring in rules officials and referees just like they do at training camp, and they make sure that we understand to be able to paint the picture to you at home. But yeah, it's a lot.
All right, first off the ball, a few moves to get to. Well, I'm gonna just lay them out there. You guys talk about whichever one interests you the most. Packers extend Christian Watson a small 1-year, potentially $13.5 million extension after this season. Obviously, hasn't played yet this year, coming off torn ACL last year. Steelers signed Jabrill Peppers, former Patriot safety, and the Eagles trade a 5th and a 6th for Tank Bigsby. Not quite the J.J. trade, where I think they gave up a 3rd back in the Super Bowl year, but making a move for a backup running back.
I am really confused by the Eagles trading for Tank Bigsby. I think one of the things that came out after the trade happened was that he was going to be used on kickoff return. And so you're trading a 5th and a 6th for a designated kickoff return guy at Tank Bigsby, who, I mean, if you want to use him on offense, he can be good to back up Saquon Barkley, kind of take some of the tough hits off him in short yard situations. But for the Jaguars and James Gladstone, this is once again a very good trade. I do have to mention that the 5th round pick that they got from the Eagles is the pick the Eagles got from the Bryce Huff trade, which is the pick that turns into a 4th if Bryce Huff has 8 or more sacks this year. So if Bryce Huff in San Francisco goes and gets 8.5, 9 sacks this year, the Jaguars will get a 4th round pick. They have 13 picks, I believe, in 2026. So to me, that feels less like draft day moving up and more we're going to go get a vet at the deadline moving up scenario, because the Jaguars are kind of in this area where they are the perfect type of team to make a trade for a vet who wants to leave and kind of make that final push for the playoffs. So I think this is a weird trade for the Eagles, but a really good one, really smart one for the Jags.
Yeah, this is one of those where I feel like a lot of moves the Eagles are involved in, you're like, Howie did it again. This is one where I'm like, I don't think Howie did this again. I think he gave up way too much. I don't think I want Tank Bigsby on that field if I'm the Philadelphia Eagles. He has some of the worst hands of any running back in the NFL. He has 5 drops on 13 catchable passes in his career and some of the worst ball security issues of any running back in the NFL. He has 5 fumbles in 2 seasons on just over 200 carries. So this guy is not your backup that you want to grind out short yardage you can rely on. It's like, no, if he's not your starter, you probably don't want him coming in there because the variance that he brings to the position is just a little scary. Cal, you muted.
I love James Gladstone. I love the youth movement. And, you know, like you were saying, JP, this is, and Mike, this is usually the Howie type move to, I guess, get somebody that's undervalued and get tremendous value out of them. And I feel like this is opposite day. The story that I'm interested in is Christian Watson. And as somebody who's battled back from injury, particularly a serious season-ending one, this is a great bit of news for Packers fans because it tells you where he's at in his recovery, how they feel about him as an athlete currently, and what they project him to be. And it also gives them that 1-year tryout, essentially, the healthy version of him. He's going to come back. He's not going to be completely healthy, and then he's going to get his game legs back, and then the Packers will have an opportunity to say, yeah, we like him. Let's keep him around, or let's find a way to deal this guy.
I mean, this is really good work for the Packers and for Christian Watson, because when Watson is healthy, he brings an element to the Packers that they don't really have, which is the combination of size and speed. He's a willing blocker, a good blocker in those situations. I think that he is going to add a nice element to Matthew Golden, to Romeo Doubs. And again, you're just creating layers in the offense. And in a way, it's also sort of rewarding a guy that you took a swing on in the draft in the second round. This is, you want to keep your player, you want to keep your good players around. I think Christian Watson is a good player. This is a nice deal for him. And I think it provides him a little less pressure as he recovers from the ACL injury to try and get back this year so he could put something on tape in case he does enter free agency. This is a deal of faith for the Packers and a guy that they really believe in.
Yeah, from Christian Watson's perspective, it's a no-brainer because he was not going to come back this year and put up big enough numbers to justify someone going out and really buying high in free agency. In the Packers' perspective, I'm not super on board with it. I think just from a pure, my worry is that he comes back and he is jumping guys who, like Jaden Reed, like Matthew Golden, like Romeo Dobbs, who are just more complete wide receivers. If in a certain role, if he's playing 10 to 15 snaps a game, and it's when you're in your 2 tight end sets and you need that
heavy
guy
play
who's
action.
who's going to create that big play threat, sure. But my worry is that they often use him as like a starting number 1 or number 2 type of wide receiver, and he's just not that. If you ask him to run the full route tree, you're going to be disappointed more often than not. Whereas they have guys that can really get open on the full route tree, and so they really, I keep going back to that stretch in 2023 where he was out, and the offense just didn't miss a beat. I think that he's not a necessary piece to the offense, but they didn't necessarily pay him like he is. $13.5 million at this point at the receiver position is wide receiver 3 numbers. That truly, that is not a starting wide receiver, is not getting that money on the open market. So
his WAR rating isn't very impressive, is what you're telling me.
WAR,
wins above replacement. It's a baseball stat.
It is not. There,
it's like the guys can get it done. We're going to be all right. I think the 2 tight end comment is indicative of the type of player that you think he is, because
yes,
I know the types of receivers that came on the field when we had 2 tight ends on the field, and they were fast as hell. And, sometimes there were physical mismatches, but there were holes in their game. I do like all the receivers in Green Bay, but yes, I'd like to see this guy healthy in that offense.
Yeah. I guess we'll see how he factors into the equation when he comes back this year, and then I'll have a stronger take on it. All right, there's our first off the ball segment. We'll take a quick break. After that, our power tiers, breaking down where everyone stands in the NFL after week 1.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah. All right, we're starting at the bottom. I went back and forth on what exactly to call this tier, but I settled on the mock draft target demo. Basically, these are the fan bases that are consuming mock draft content at this point in time. And it is the New Orleans Saints, the Tennessee Titans, the Cleveland Browns, and the Miami Dolphins. I don't even think we need much of an explanation here. These teams are they're in a bad way. Dolphins maybe would have been a little bit controversial before the season. After week 1, after Tyreek Hill, it's like, yeah, you're looking to next year. Harry, can you confirm? Harry can confirm. All right. Next tier. Things better change quickly. I don't think these teams are necessarily terrible, but they were terrible in week 1. They are the New York Giants, New England Patriots, the Carolina Panthers, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Chicago Bears. Now, I debated putting the Panthers in the mock draft target demo. I think they have a little bit more riding on this season, though, in terms of Bryce Young and the offense. And, they still want to see that next step. And they've seen it at times, seen it in games, but they're not completely eyes to the future just yet. But the rest of these teams, it's like with the Giants, that offense, that has to change, especially when it's Brian Daboll's side of the ball. He's kind of taken a pass for a long time here, but that needs to change in a big way for them. New England Patriots, about as dud as you can have for a brand new staff, brand new team. That went
really let all of us down here
at home. Seattle Seahawks, just offensively, that 49ers defense is not as good as they made them look. I don't think it's a better defense than it was last year, but it is not a dominant defense. And then the Chicago Bears, we don't need to rehash exactly why things better change quickly, but we all know. Next tier, dark horses. It's a fun tier. I don't think these are necessarily playoff teams, but who knows? That's why they're dark horses. It's the Las Vegas Raiders, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Jets, and the Indianapolis Colts.
Dude, the Jets were so much fun to watch.
I know.
It was so cool.
Okay. We talked a lot about Armand Membu here, and I talk about the RAS score. JP, are you familiar with the RAS score? Of course you are. Relative athletic score. So your boy had a good one coming out. I didn't know a lot of football, but I relied on the RAS a lot in my game. And when I watched Membu crossing over in a set against a Hall of Famer, transitioning a crossover bull rush into a flatline pancake run game style on TJ Watt, I salivate a little bit. I get a little excited. And when Aaron Glenn and that, the diabolical moves he's made, flying Aaron Rodgers out to New York, telling him, "No, we just wanted to tell you in person we don't want you." And then Justin Fields being the guy. The way that the Jets rally around their quarterback offensively, albeit there's still some stuff to be desired in that offense, you can see it happening. I like the Jets because I always tip my cap to Justin Fields about how he handled business in Chicago. And, Jets are fun. Membu's a badass.
That entire offensive line just whooped the Steelers' ass for a large majority of that game. I think Olu Fashanu had a great game. Joe Tippmann in his first game back at guard was incredible. There were a couple plays. I think the first Breece Hall touchdown where Joe Tippmann pancakes Keanu Benton, and then John Simpson pancakes Yaya Black on top of Keanu Benton. And I'm just like, that's exactly what you want to see as a Jets fan. Like the entire strength of this team on the offensive side of the ball is the offensive line. And the fact they did that against a very strong, of course, they're missing Derek Harmon, which is going to play a big factor. But doing that against a strong Steelers defensive line has got to give them a lot of hope. Justin Fields looked great, looked confident. I still think there were points where he was kind of slow in just the mechanics, but that's just Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And the way that Tanner Engstrand designed this offense was awesome. If there's any team that lost that I feel better about coming out of a loss, it's probably the Jets.
Yes. I do want to give one caveat, though. Armand Membu, because I saw Jets fans beating their chests out about him handling TJ Watt. I think they got 4 one-on-ones the entire game. I went back and counted. One of them, Watt sunned him. Another one was
one of them,
and one of them Membu sunned him. So
no, yeah.
Here's the thing. That's why everyone on this he's not going to.
The guy's out there just bail. He's bailing on his set. He's got no technical plan, and he's just out there like Clubber Lang, just trying to crush people. And I respect that. You'd rather say whoa than sick him. And with that young man, you don't have to tell him much other than just keep your base, dude. Don't bail out on your set.
But the offense is not going to ask him. It's not going to ask him to go one-on-one. That's why it was a great pick, is because you have Justin Fields back there. You have Tanner Engstrand as your OC. It's going to be a run-heavy, play-action-heavy, chip-heavy offense that you could protect your offensive line that way. Just kick ass in the running game, and guess what? Armand Membu kicks some absolute ass.
Real quick, I do want to shout out the Raiders. It's crazy what happens when you have a really good quarterback under center. And I think that was the thing that stood out about the Raiders offense. Some of the really cool things that Chip Kelly pulled out at 12 personnel when Brock Bowers was still in the game. I think there was an opening play where they had Brock Bowers tight to the line of scrimmage, but he was lined up as a wide receiver. Michael Mayer was in the backfield, and they motioned, I think it was Jacoby Myers, out, and you just get a wide open window behind the linebackers for Brock Bowers because the Patriots defense was in their base personnel because they're in 12. And I think that's going to be something that the Raiders are going to want to lean into heavily. And Chip Kelly designed a lot of targets, a lot of cool looks for Brock Bowers over the middle of the field. There was a really nice, I think it's similar to a choice route, but he just worked the DB for like a 30-yard gain. And that's the Chip Kelly offense. You're going to find Brock Bowers over the middle of the field, and then Geno Smith just maximizes everybody.
Yeah, it doesn't, he didn't come out with kind of the gimmicks that he did last time around in the NFL. This is just sound offensive football, and it's playing to his receivers' skill sets is, I think, the biggest thing that you see with that offense that I touched on Sunday night is that they have varying skill sets in that offense. Whether it's Trey Tucker, Dante Thornton, Jack Best, or Jacoby Myers, Michael Mayer, or Brock Bowers, they all have like a thing they do very well. And I thought it put those guys to basically maximize what they do very well. And that's what makes you a good OC. That's how you move the ball. And then you have a quarterback who just is a guy uniquely qualified to operate an offense like that. That's just going to dot it up game after game. So very excited about the Raiders offense. I even feel bad putting the dark horse. I think they really have a shot at making the playoffs, like a real shot in that, even in that division.
If their run defense plays the way they did Sunday, Adam Butler was whooping ass all Sunday against a very young Patriots offensive line. But
that one to me was a little more Jared Wilson.
Yeah, that's a Jared Wilson play strength. That's the bad matchup. But if they defend the run the way they did on Sunday, with Devin White playing the way he did, I think Jamal Adams had a great game, Isaiah Polamau. If they are able to defend the run the way they did on Sunday, they're going to have a really good shot at making the playoffs.
Yeah. One thing that stood out to me about the Raiders is obviously the score, the opponent, the way it happened. We talked about 12 personnel with Chip a lot this offseason and things we can look forward to if they did go ahead with Genty, and they did, and Geno fell in their laps. It works really well. It works really well. But the thing that stood out to me as a player was the post-game locker room, the amount of smiles, and Pete Carroll's culture is already a thing. And it's just crazy how some people have that ability to just put their flag in the ground and all of a sudden everybody's uniforms are all looking the same. It's like Jim Harbaugh and this guy. So pretty cool. And I'm always rooting for Chip.
All right, let's get to the playoff hopefuls. And there are some teams in here that I'm not sure I would have put in here before week one, but that are falling into the hopeful category because I'm not so certain that these teams are making the playoffs. They are Minnesota Vikings, Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers, Los Angeles Chargers, Kansas City Chiefs, Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers, Dallas Cowboys, Atlanta Falcons. And this may be controversial, but I don't think this current incarnation, whatever. And I'm doing this again right now. Of the Kansas City Chiefs or the Houston Texans, they are not Super Bowl teams right now. They just aren't. They are too flawed. This Chiefs receiving core without Xavier Worthy. You tell me Hollywood Brown, Tyquan Thornton is going to get me to win a Super Bowl? I just know. And the defense has lost too much, does not have the teeth that it had. It's just this Chiefs team is not a Super Bowl contender right now. Now, that could change. They're going to get guys back. And then when they do, when they have,
and this is what you said last year too, Mike. This is what you said last year about the Chiefs.
I'm saying right now.
Every week. Oh, they were close games.
Well, they didn't win the Super Bowl, did they? So they weren't.
No, but they were Super Bowl contenders.
They got their ass kicked in the Super Bowl. I'm kidding.
They did, but Survivor Series. There's only two left. They were the two primetime teams.
The Houston Texans is the other one where
I agree.
The offensive line. You tell me that offensive line can get 4 games through
non-starter
playoffs. They're not a contender. They're just not. Unfortunately, you just didn't put a good enough situation around CJ Stroud.
I think the thing that worries me the most about the Texans is, do you guys know who led Houston in receiving yards on Sunday?
Oh no, I don't. Let me think. This is Dare Ogunbowale?
No. It's a good pick, but no.
Oh, God, I have to look at this.
It is Jaden Higgins.
Oh,
who had 32 yards receiving. Nico Collins had 25 yards in receiving. Justin Watson had 27. Like that can't happen anymore. The way that they were unable to get Nico Collins into the game, and I thought they had some cool stuff like the screen game really worked. You can design that stuff for Nico Collins, your best offensive target, especially while the young guys still come along. You have to be able to try and steal plays, steal yards using play action, using the screen game, because your offensive line just can't. You can't line up and you can't go 5 out and just go block everybody. Yeah, you can't get a block. So you have to go out and use these guys in their movement. You got to try and use the run game. You got to try and use play action just to try and get the ball moving downfield. It sucks because they should have won that game. They should have beaten the Rams. The way their defense played, they should have beaten the Rams. But you can't move the ball, and that's going to be the issue the entire season for them. So yeah, it's going to be really tough for me to see them consistently being a good enough offense to get to that point.
And the worry is that it's, the Rams, great D-line. They're going to make some average D-lines look like great D-lines, though. If Ariante Ursary is having,
they're going to make some
time
average
issues,
O-lines. Are you talking about? Oh, you're talking about the Texans O-lines
Texans
making
O-line.
people look like Hall of Famers. Yeah, absolutely. Every week.
If you're having trouble with Byron Young, you're going to have trouble with most defensive ends on your schedule. If that's a big issue for you, it's going to be a big issue week in and week out. And I was, first game as rookie, for new position, but rookie year, sometimes it doesn't necessarily get better, because sometimes when you take the lumps, the confidence goes in the tank. And then if confidence goes in the tank, you're not really developing. So there are big worries with this Texans team that I wish, the defense is so good that you think that there's a path to, if they just have an average offense, they could win Super Bowl. But I don't know if we see that walking through the door in Texas.
And you worry with the Texans because the bottom could fall out real quickly for that offense. They play Tampa Bay. They have 2 games against Jacksonville before week 10. They have a road game against Baltimore. They have Tennessee, Seattle, San Francisco, and Denver. Those are not defensive lines that you want to face with your offensive line looking the way it is right now.
No.
And the hope is that Ursary gets better with reps, as many young guys do. But these are not the defensive lines that you want to go out and try stuff with. Because if the bottom falls out really quickly for the Texans, they're going to put themselves behind the 8 ball in the AFC South, where now all of a sudden the Colts look competitive. The Jaguars look competitive on offense. It's going to get bad before it gets better for the Texans offensive line. And I just don't know if they have enough time.
I think the good thing about the Texans as a team is that defense that you discussed, and that is the floor. And they have like a dead stop at how bad it can get because of how well that defense can play. And I just hope the culture overall is able to translate and they get more comfortable playing together as an offensive line. That's really the silver lining, is that they haven't had many games together. So maybe it gets better week 2, but it's going to need to get a lot better if they want to be competitive, because people have sky high expectations for the Texans. A good football team with a good head coach and a quarterback who has been great at times, they're going to be hamstrung by this O-line all season.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen elite defenses have terrible records. The Jets come to mind in recent years, the solid Jets. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that, like you said, JP, this could just go south all season long for the offense, unfortunately. All right, contenders. The real deal. They're not the Super Bowl favorites, but they're contenders. It is the Commanders, the Lions, the Rams, the Bucks, the Broncos. Broncos may be controversial after how they looked week 1, but they are basically kind of what we just said about the Texans. Elite defense. That's going to travel week in and week out. But they have an elite offensive line. It's like flip side offensive line. And so maybe they have a worse quarterback. Not maybe. I'm pretty sure they do in Bo Nix. But he's going to have time week in and week out. And you're hoping that the boneheaded Bo Nix plays that we saw too many of week 1, that they get smoothed out the same way they did last year. Because down the stretch last year, he basically kind of eliminated those sort of throws, but had a bunch of them early on last season.
I think the Broncos are also in this weird place. Like you said, they are the Texans, but they have an elite offensive line. I think the worrisome part, if you're the Broncos offense, is that you still weren't able to push the ball downfield. You still weren't able to generate explosives. And it's so much of the offense is constrained within the first 10 yards that you need guys who can make people miss after the catch. And they still need those guys. You need RJ Harvey to play well in the passing game. You need more Marvin Mims, just like design targets, because he is probably their best receiver after the catch. You need some more explosiveness in that short yardage area. But yeah, like Kyle said with the Texans, the Broncos defense gives them a hard stop. The team will not be uber bad as long as the defense plays the way they did on Sunday.
You have a chance to win with a defense, but with a bad O-line, you have more than a chance to lose every week. I like these tiers so far. They're fun. Some disagreements, but I think the Bo Nix issue is this, and I don't know if it's a Bo Nix issue. When I think Sean Payton, I think detail-oriented offenses that work, and they're great with quarterbacks. Some of the miscommunications, concerning week 1, I don't know, something to keep an eye on. If you got Bo Nix out there correcting guys in Bo Nix raging fashion, he's like, "Hey, dumbass,
stop!" Stop.
That's like Rodgers, right? Rodgers used to be
Yeah.
like, are you not seeing the same game I'm seeing? So for somebody who saw that, something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I do question just their offseason approach to giving him more weapons, because it's the same. I mean, RJ Harvey, J.K. Dobbins, that's probably a better running back room. It's not a transformative running back room. And then just the receiving core, though, is really no different. You're banking on guys like Marvin Mims, Troy Franklin being much better. Maybe they will be as the season wears on, but week one, it did not come to fruition. All right, Super Bowl favorites last year. No real debate here. The only one I'll explain in a second. Eagles, Ravens, Packers, Bills.
Oh.
And the Bills are flawed. Do not get it twisted. I don't think in terms of rosters, they are kind of this, redheaded stepchild of this group. But you saw the reason why they are Super Bowl favorites on Sunday night is because with Josh Allen, with that offensive line, with now a receiving core that has maybe no alpha, but a bunch of guys that he trusts, that a bunch of guys that can actually make a play. And I thought Keon Coleman actually looked a lot better week one than he did a season ago. You're never out. This is like the Chiefs the past couple seasons. And I said the Chiefs not now just because they're so dilapidated, so depleted, so injury riddled and suspension riddled. But this is like the Chiefs the past couple years where it's like, yeah, they're not the best team. But if you give Josh Allen the ball with a minute 30 and he needs a touchdown to win it, you're probably going to lose. Unfortunately, that's just where this Bills team is at right now.
You got to bury him. We
Yes.
said it a lot about the Chiefs. Like you said, you have to bury the Bills because Josh Allen has the unique trait of not only getting the Bills downfield and scoring position, but he can do it in chunks. He can do it in big plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's what stood out in the fourth quarter during that comeback. It wasn't just that they were dinking and dunking their way to touchdowns. He was getting chunks. He was
It was
getting
20-21.
Yeah.
Mahomes 2-minute drives. It was
he was
bang,
getting
bang, bang, end zone.
It was massive plays, massive chunk yards. And I think the thing for the Bills, if they want to be Super Bowl favorites, you need to get games like that out of Ed Oliver again. He has to be the most impactful defensive player on the field, because if he is impacting the game in the run and the pass, that makes everybody else's job easier because of how light they play. So if Ed Oliver is going to play like he did on Sunday for the rest of the season, then yeah, I can believe this team is a Super Bowl contender.
All right.
Bad matchup on the interior there against Baltimore. For Baltimore against Ed Oliver. He moves really well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Who was in the right tier and who was in the wrong tier?
So my first one that I think was in the right tier is the Atlanta Falcons. That was another team where they lost the game, but I'm actually more confident in the Falcons moving forward than I was going into this season. And the main reason is because the quarterback is a dude. Michael Penix Jr. played really well. Of course, there were some accuracy just misses that I think that's just going to happen with Michael Penix. He's going to miss some throws, but he avoided pressure so well in that game. Something that I don't think he got a lot of credit for when he played last season, those 4 games. But his ability to avoid the chaotic plays, he avoided turnovers. I think he was only sacked once. He had those 2 big rushes, the touchdown and then the first down before it. I think having a quarterback that can do that, and then the defense was able to get pressure. You were able to get some really cool simulated pressure looks. A lot of guys getting pressures. I think James Pierce had a pretty good day. So if they're able to win like that and just the offense moves the ball a little better in short yardage situations. That's my only big thing with the Falcons is they are not good in short yardage. I think it's because they're always out of pistol and out of shotgun. And like, that's just going to hurt you, especially without a quarterback you design run reads for. If you're going to live like that in short yardage, it's tough, but this team can move the ball. They can score points and they can get the ball back to their offense.
And I think I came into the season expecting Michael Penix to be what we saw. I was like super high in what we saw at the end of last season. So that was not what changed for me. To me, the 4 rookies that played defensively, I think were all upgrades in their own way. Obviously, we talked about Xavier Watson, why he was an upgrade, and that's like massive upgrade. But Billy Bowman as well gives you something as a blitzer, had a sack in that game, just gives you some juice around the line of scrimmage that can be a value add in run defense as well. And then Jalen Walker, to me, it's just a matter of time with him. I think he just needs to play more edge because obviously in college didn't play a ton. And when he did play, he was splitting time between off ball and on ball. But there were some reps against Luke Gedeke where it's just like, damn, that guy has something special. One was just him backside on a duo run, and Gedeke's just trying to kick him out. And he, with one arm, sends Gedeke like 5 feet backwards. And that's just like, okay, when you see a guy's power translate that quickly to an NFL against, again, top 5 guys paid right tackle in the NFL, you're like, it's just a matter of time. He just needs the reps to play a little faster. And once he starts playing fast, the guy is an elite athlete. I was very encouraged by his and James Pierce's debut. I think they'll only be more impactful as the season wears on.
Scouting's easy. Scouting's easy. Just get the best athlete that's the strongest, that loves the football game the most. And
that is literally Jalen Walker.
You should be okay, right? If that's figure that out.
And Divine Diablo also played really well in the middle of that defense. I think he was able to tie some of what Jeff Ulbrich wanted to do in coverage with being a blitzer, and his instincts really stood out in the run game. I thought he played well. Zach Harrison had some nasty run stops, and just if they can get some of those, like we said, the Falcons defense had a bunch of like other guys on the roster. They had a whole lot of, okay, these are quality players, but they're not great players. If those guys play well consistently, like Divine Diablo can be a really, really fun piece for this defense. So you have so many moving pieces on this defense. There's so many moving parts, and that's going to be really fun, and they'll be able to just cause havoc and get the ball back for their offense.
I think the other thing is just the floor was so low. Like they were at last year, bottom 3 in pass rush win rate for the front 4. It's like the floor was always going to get surpassed this year, but I was very pleasantly surprised. Like this could be an average to above average defense given what I saw. And if that is, we all know what the offense can do. All right, who's in the wrong tier for you, JP?
I think it's the 49ers. And the biggest reason is just Kittle's going to be out. He's on IR. Jawan Jennings already hurt. Trent Williams missed time during the game with an injury. Christian McCaffrey is Christian McCaffrey, but there's also bound for the Christian McCaffrey injury.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like this team is one more injury away from just not having enough juice offensively. I like what Ricky Pearsall did this in the game against the Seahawks, but you're throwing the game-winning touchdowns to John Tonjes.
Tonjes, baby.
Like, what are we doing here? Like, we have AI-generated players scoring touchdowns for the 49ers now.
That was a better catch than the catch.
That was a better catch than the catch because you did it over a 6'4" DB. I just worry about Brock Purdy, and he just throws some real. We said it on the Sunday night show. He throws some real confident interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
He throws some real he's gonna do some really stupid stuff, and without the margin for error that they used to have, the variance is going to end up not in the offense's favor.
And I'll say this: so I did debate that things better change. Now they did win, but things better change meaning injuries. Not the Kittle injury, Jawan Jennings being banged up, Ayuk obviously being hurt, but Trent Williams also he went to the sideline in that game, but played. He didn't look good. It was not the Trent of old. PFF had him charged for 6 pressures. He hasn't given up that many in a 49ers uniform ever. So that is, if he's not Trent, because a lot of this offense is just based off Trent's going to be Trent. We're always going to have the backside cut back because Trent's Trent. If he's not Trent, and if he's a little banged up, your
offense changes.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. It is going to be
not just like the plays we're going to call, but we're going to rethink how we drew this entire thing up, because there are things that Trent Williams can get accomplished at 36 years old, 37 now, that other guys just can't. It's like, if you've got these freaks, which not everybody does. I think there needs to be, just between playoff hopefuls and contenders, there should just be a genre tier called the Lions, because I still have so many questions, and I'm still and I know it may sound sacrilegious to say this, but I'm not comfortable putting the Lions in contention yet. And I know that they played a Super Bowl favorite week 1 on the road, all that stuff. But you got to be better on the inside. You have to be better on the inside. I am supremely confident in putting them in playoff hopefuls because that's Dan Campbell and that's Jared Goff's leadership and that's that running game and the great guys that Brad Holmes has brought into that roster. But the strength of this football team, don't get it twisted, was the offensive line. And that's why they had success. And yes, Ben Johnson was the Michelin star chef, but I could go cook the meat that he was working with. You know what I mean? Now, he cooked it damn good. But I'm not comfortable saying Super Bowl contenders. I'll put them right above playoff hopefuls or at the top of that list.
I also do wonder if the Lions sort of changed their coverage shells defensively. They played a lot of man, a lot of single high, and got shredded because they couldn't get pressure. And with Aiden Hutchinson sort of still coming back from injury, I thought the Packers honestly had a great game plan to slow him down. They were doubling them with tight ends. They were chipping him. They were using a lot of play action to slow him down. But if he's not close to 100% yet, your pass rush loses a lot of its teeth. And we've talked about it before, but if you can't rush the passer while you're playing man coverage, you're asking to get beat downfield. So I wonder if they try kind of transition using a little bit more zone just to give Aiden Hutchinson a little bit more time to turn it up and kind of find out who the other stars will be in pass rush because they can't get shredded like that in man coverage again.
Yeah, one thing that Matt LaFleur does, though, that I think every offensive coordinator should look at and try to replicate. He is never going to let Aiden Hutchinson take over a game. He is, if there is a star pass rusher on the other team, they will have a game plan every single time they pass.
Consider it done.
It's just they just neutralize. Like, do whatever you can, get 3 guys in a route if you must. But he would rather give his quarterback time every single day of the week than let an OT go one-on-one against a guy like Aiden Hutchinson. Just, he's not going to do it. So, and obviously the fruits of that are, pretty consistent offense, it seems like. So, all right, who was your correct tier? Did you have one, Kyle?
My correct tier would be the Chicago Bears. Something's got to change. I don't know whether it's technically. I don't know whether it's point of emphasis. Something's got to change. And if it doesn't, could get out of hand quick. Because that defense is not like the Texans or like the Broncos. Don't get it twisted. Dennis Allen can line up in, subterranean intergalactic fronts. But at the end of the day, you got to score points and you got to stop people when they're going to run the football. And if you can't do that, shit out of luck.
I also think they got to run the ball better.
Yep.
Like, they had a 19% success rate on the ground. That is entirely unsustainable to winning football games. We talked about after the Monday Night Football game on Tuesday, but if you can't run the ball to ice the game out, none of this works. And I think, of course, it was a good game plan by the Vikings, but the holes were there. The yards were there. It's just DeAndre Swift has never followed a block a day in his life.
No.
And you don't trust Kyle Monangai yet. And that was sort of the question mark going into the season for the Bears. Did they do enough at the running back position to warrant this offense being as highly thought of as we talked about before the season? So
why we see their number 1 receiver lining up at H. It's
they have to give DJ more carries to get some movement on the ground in the run game. So I wonder how they're going to try and get some more effective yards out of the backfield. Is this where you play DJ Moore or Luther Burden just to try and get your most talented guys on the field? Because if you can't ice games away like that when the defense was playing the way they did, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, I am a little surprised they didn't have more handoffs to Moore and Burden, just because everyone knows your running back room is not built to produce. DeAndre Swift has been extremely inconsistent over the course of his career. There's a reason Ben Johnson got rid of him in the first place in Detroit. So, like, I was very surprised last April when it took them till the 7th round in one of the best running back and deepest running back classes I've ever scouted to draft a running back. because it felt like they had so many picks, right, in that middle range of the draft. I was just like, oh, here it comes. Here's the pick. Here's where they draft one of those guys. And again, they passed for other positions who, obviously, we'll see how they turn out long term. I'm not going to bash any other positions, but it's just like you're really regretting not getting a, Dylan Sampson, a Bayshol Tootin, who was like readily available at some of those picks that looked really good in week 1. All right. That's our power tiers. After that, after the break, we're going to tier up the most entertaining quarterbacks in the NFL. JP came with some heat, and we're going to give a little Thursday night preview and Kyle's locks of the week right after this.
You can't count on Derek's tongue skills.
Oh, Tony, I think it hit the ground.
But you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus.
JP, take it away.
All right. So my power tier of the week is most entertaining quarterbacks. And this is not like, of course, some of the best quarterbacks will be in the most entertaining portion, but some of the better quarterbacks in the league aren't entertaining. And there are some bad quarterbacks who are very entertaining. So we'll just start at the top with our must-watch guys. These are the highlights. These are the guys you have to tune into every single game. The first one I put on here is Baker Mayfield. That is the king of the highlight reel. Always going to play an entertaining game. You have Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels, Jordan Love, Matthew Stafford, and Jameis Winston.
Yes.
Jameis is the most entertaining, one of the most entertaining quarterbacks in the NFL. You don't know where the ball is going to go most of the time, but it's going to go somewhere, and that's the most entertaining part of it.
See, I feel like this almost should be 2 tiers, and they're both must watch, but it's like must watch for skill and must watch for the way they play the game.
Yeah,
because like Jameis Winston is the way he plays the game. Baker Mayfield, obviously some skill, but like the way he plays the game. Whereas Justin Herbert, it's not as if his brand of play is super exciting. It's just like, do you like seeing a guy throw 100 miles per hour to a dot 40 yards down the field? It's like, if you do, you're going to love Justin Herbert's hit.
And then there's like the entertainment factor of the drunk dad at the barbecue who does the wiffle ball spin and then he goes and like runs the bases or whatever. That's like what some of these guys are like watching. But hey, I'll stop and watch. I grew up on America's Funniest Home Videos. That's probably why I like some of these quarterbacks.
The game that really came to mind with Jameis is the one against the Broncos last year where he threw for like almost like 600 yards, threw 2 pick sixes, but also threw like 3 touchdowns. That was like uncut Jameis. That was like straight from the source. That is like the most perfect quarterback. Like if Jameis Winston played football in like 2002 instead of 2025, he would be like one of the best quarterbacks in the league.
It was Jameis crack. It was the normal Jameis cocaine. It was crack.
It was
Jameis crack. So my next tier is called They'll Go Viral on Social Media. And these are the guys that'll have the highlight reel throws. They'll be the ones that are clipped. They're like, oh, look at this. This guy had an awesome throw. But a lot of their game is sort of a little more quieter. It's a little more, they're still not explosive yet, but they're on their way to being in that must-watch tier. So Dak Prescott is in my They'll Go Viral tier. We have Michael Penix Jr., Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, Geno Smith, Cam Ward, Drake May, and Justin Fields. These are all guys that I think the clips that you'll see of their plays will make the rounds on social media. There are going to be some high-level throws.
Gets the people going.
Yeah, it gets the people going. And in Justin Fields' case, there's going to be a lot of really cool runs attached to them as well. But they also sort of there are large stretches of the game where they just kind of peter out. So if you tune in, I initially had this tier called the Sunday Ticket All-Stars because if you go and watch the highlights, it'll look really cool. But then if you go and watch the full Sunday Ticket game, it's like, I don't know. Like there's not a lot of fun happening here.
See, to me, there's like one guy who just doesn't quite fit in this one. And I feel like it's Dak Prescott. Dak to me is just like, you're never super like, whoa, what was that from Dak? Like it's always just sound.
I thought he was like that the other night, though. I thought it was like it kind of had some Baker to it in terms of the toughness factor. And you also have to keep in mind the absolute shit show that is the Dallas Cowboys.
Oh, yeah.
And that's all that he's known. And then I think about where he came from in college, and he took Mississippi State to a very high place, but he was never the blue bloods of the SEC. So his entire career, he's had the same thing, but he just continues to show up. And now you got Pickens with Dak. I'd put him in the must-watch. I'd put Dak Prescott in must-watch territory.
So I thought about Dak in must-watch, but I also think Dak is must-watch for a lot of like the real, like the film watchers, for a lot of the people who played the game, because Dak is so good at the mechanical aspects of the position, and he's going to consistently throw a lot of seam balls. He's going to throw a lot of tightly contested coverages, and like some of that is just not very fun for the average fan. But watching him on tape, watching all 22 Dak is one of my must watches when I watch tape. Like, we got to go.
That's kind of what I was driving at, was like, you appreciate the high level quarterbacking, but like in just a game you're watching on TV, you're not going to see this just like stupid, crazy play that, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, that those guys are capable of doing, even if they're capable of, much lower level plays too.
All right. My next tier, I have this called quiet highlights, loud lowlights. These are the guys where, like, you see the clips on Twitter of them doing bad, and it's like, oh, what is this guy doing? He must be having a terrible game. And then you go watch, it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad. Like, it was fine. I think, like, these are the guys where, like, they're just cool. They're cool quarterbacks. The first one, and this is one I actually think could have gone a little higher for viral, Anthony Richardson. The highlights might be a little louder than most of the guys on here, but the lowlights just, they take over for him. Then I have Trevor Lawrence. I have Tua Tagovailoa, Bryce Young, Jalen Hurts, Spencer Rattler, Jared Goff, Bo Nix, CJ Stroud, Aaron Rodgers, and Brock Purdy.
Okay, so I have a take now. What I would have done is I would have taken a brand new tier called "All You Need to Do Is Watch the Twitter Clips," and it would include Anthony Richardson, Kyler Murray, Caleb Williams, and Justin Fields. You don't necessarily want to watch their entire game. If you watch the entire game, you'll probably be frustrated for a lot of the game. But all you really want is the 2 or 3 plays that they made, and you'll be like, "Damn, that was sick." So you just want to watch the Twitter or the red zone, the red zone quarterbacks, where it's like they'll show you, red zone will show you the things you want to see from those guys. But the full game, if it's like a Sunday Night Football and you're sitting there watching, you might be like, oof.
They're going to make some real cool TikTok edits.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and every single one of these guys has the ability to do some special stuff. And all of them different. Like, I just think about how unconscious CJ Stroud was when Aaron Rodgers is in his flow state. Brock Purdy being so calm while running for his life, being able to set his feet, make throws. Like, he is. So I've referenced Buddy Lee jeans a lot. And when I was a kid, Buddy Lee was like the mascot for a denim company. And that mascot got just thrown off of cliffs, run over by 18-wheelers, and then he'd get up and his jeans were okay. Like, it's a little Brock Purdy there with Buddy Lee. Bo Nix, I'd almost put him in they'll go viral on social media just because of the antics between him and his coach. And now after week 1, some of the facial expressions, they should all be GIFs. And Jared Goff is like watching the Masters, honestly. Not everybody's going to win the Masters, but like the way he handles business is just like calm. And I could almost hear Jim Nantz narrating everything that he does. And Jared breaks the huddle. The wind coming here in Minnesota. There's no wind in Minnesota indoors, but you know what I'm saying.
Jared Goff is a boring quarterback, but I don't mean that in a bad way.
It's good.
It's a good thing to be boring. And I think it's just kind of the same thing with Jalen Hurts, where like he's just going to go in, he's going to clock in, he's going to do his job.
This is Masters coverage tier.
Yeah.
This is just like, we can't get too excited, but like if somebody misses a putt, we're going to show it 1,000,000 times on SportsCenter.
Oh, yeah.
See, I liken Jalen Hurts to, he's like a solid Uber driver in a Ferrari. Like he'll get you where you're going. But I want, like, when I get into Ferrari, I want a race car driver, like you want a guy who's cruising, but he's He's gonna, stop at the reds. He's gonna do the speed limit. You're not gonna complain.
He is the Uber driver that you tell him, like, we can speed up if you want.
Yeah.
It's like, and it smells
like,
really
let me
bizarre.
just.
He's got the little bottles of Fiji in the back, and there's tissues if you need them. I'm like, just drive fast, man. Just look how sick
You're
this
in a
car
Ferrari.
is.
Come on, chuck it. No, I think there's like another tier that I would throw inside of this tier where it's just like, hey, the ball's going to come out. You're going to hit the back foot. The ball's going to come out. Some stuff could happen, but the ball's going to come out. It's like Trevor, Tua, Knicks. Those three, it's just like, hey, you're not going to see a bunch of sacks. You're not going to see the guy holding on to it and just like, that brand of football that just gets old. Stuff will happen when those guys have the ball. It might always be good. You might not have a lot of high-end throws in the game, but the ball's coming out. And
yeah, they're effective at moving the ball. There's not going to be a lot impressive. There are going to be some low lights, but when you go back and watch, you'll be like, oh, that was a cool throw. Like, that was fine. That was cool. My last tier, 3 people in this tier, these are the snoozers.
Oh, no.
These are people that I just don't like watching. First one's Daniel Jones. Then we have Russell Wilson and Gardner Minshew as a snoozer. And maybe I'm just being mean to Gardner Minshew because I'm a Jaguars fan, but he plays the most boring style of football known to man. Daniel Jones is, of course, we saw like the first game against the Dolphins. Maybe you don't think he's in the snoozer tier, but he plays the most scared I've ever seen a dual threat quarterback play. Like someone who can run and someone who can throw
everything.
Yeah, but he's like, oh my God, what if I leave the pocket, I'm gonna get crushed. And it's just like, dude, you can actually go and like run if you wanted to. And Russ, it sucks because like 2015 Russ probably would have been like must see, but the precipitous drop all the way down the tier list in the snoozer it's honestly a shame.
I grew up playing against Russell Wilson since we were like 14 in Central Virginia, and he was the most fun guy I'd ever watched play any sport. You watch him play basketball, it was great, point guard. You watch him play baseball, he was, shortstop, pitcher, he hit bombs. And then the first time I played him in football when he was at collegiate, I mean, I didn't touch him, bro. I didn't touch the guy, and it was electric just watching him do Frank Tarkenton back there. And then you watch him do it in the league, and to your point, he was must watch, and now it's kind of like a CEO that's on the back nine trying to figure out how to manage this thing in a boring way.
I got one more tier, and you didn't throw Flacco in there. I think he would probably be in the snoozers, unfortunately, at this point, Flacco.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go with his teammate. I think there's one more tier where it's just like, please never subject us to watching what he did last year ever again. It's Deshaun Watson, because watching him last year was the most boring ass shit I've ever seen. He wasn't even trying to like play quarterback. It was just like drop back, and then let's just run into pressure. Let's just like not try to operate the offense whatsoever. Anytime we do, we miss the throw. That was brutal. Please don't let us watch him. If he comes back and plays, please look like the guy in Houston. We don't want to see what we saw last year.
Yeah, if Flacco's on here, he'd definitely be in the snoozer at this point. I think he's risk averse at this point because he's 40.
Yep.
He's got kids. Like,
don't hit me.
He goes home and like he's got to put the kids to bed. Like,
I remember Big Ben at the end of his career where he was like legitimately just like, don't touch me.
Like, the practice clips of him at like 40 years old were some of the funniest stuff ever.
I think one of his last games is one of the funniest stat lines or box scores I've ever seen. I think he threw the ball like 50 times for like maybe 175 yards. Like he was just not throwing the ball downfield. That's what Joe Flacco is right now. I worry that we're going to get that from Aaron Rodgers a little bit. But yeah, with Deshaun, like I just never want to see him play football again because it's just not fun. Yeah. Like it's like he's trying to be the athlete that he was, but he's not.
Yes.
And he's also trying to be the passer that he was, and he's also not. So now he's just out there like doing stuff that you just don't have the facilities for.
He's just a guy playing a dude.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to the Thursday Night Football preview. Commanders at Packers. Packers 3.5-point favorites. 48.5 points is the over-under. I'm too close to this one, as always. JP, break it down for us.
So we got rankings here. I have the head coach being for the Packers. Quarterback is a tie, as is receivers. Backfield, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, and secondary, I'm
Smart
giving
man.
the Green Bay.
Smart man.
But I do think this game is going to be hinged upon if Cliff Kingsbury can neutralize Micah Parsons sort of in the same way Matt LaFleur neutralized Aiden Hutchinson. I think when you watch the Commanders against the Giants, when they chipped and had extra help in the backfield to protect Jaden Daniels, he was really good. He was able to shred a lot of the Giants' coverage. But when they went 5-man protection, he was getting sacked. There was pressure. He was having to scramble, and they just couldn't really move the ball. And now you're going up against the Rage of Sparta, Micah Parsons, who is playing another who is a former division rival, and Josh Connolly is your starting right tackle. He's going to see a lot of Micah Parsons, obviously, but I wonder how they're going to try and neutralize him and help Josh Connolly in both the run and pass. What's going to be really fun, though, Edgerrin Cooper is going to be a spy for this game. Watching Edgerrin Cooper try and run down Jaden Daniels is going to be so cool. I think if you look at this game from the Packers offense, a Commanders defense perspective, again, you just got to try and create chaos. You got to try and turn some of the negative plays that the Packers going to make into turnovers, because that's the only way I think they stay in this game. But Jordan Love did a really good job diagnosing pressure, and they picked up a lot of fun looks that Detroit threw at them. So I'm leaning Packers in this one, but I do think there's a world where Jaden and Cliff neutralize or slow down Parsons enough to get some chaos throws downfield.
In order to neutralize or slow him down, which I'm fully in support of, JP, we got to know where he's going to be and what he's going to be, and how they intend to use him. And he's been in the building now for over a week. Maybe they got to playbook page 2. You know, they got off of playbook page 1 and they let him get comfortable in his jersey. And this week you could see some different types of stunts, some different types of alignments, looper, floater, spinner looks. All the O-linemen on here are just like rolling their eyes listening, because they know where Micah Parsons is going to be. He's going to be everywhere. And we saw last week, and at some instances in the Giants game, there was some one-on-ones on the inside that didn't go very well for these guys. So we're going to have an opportunity to get some of those one-on-ones. It may not be with Micah Parsons, but we're not talking about world beaters on the Commanders front.
Yeah, I like the Packers, not just because I'm an overt homer, but 2 reasons. One, most teams don't have like a single guy that can track down Jaden Daniels outside the pocket. The Packers have 2.
Yeah,
Micah Parsons, they got Edgerrin Cooper. That like you actually feel good about. Most teams don't have a single one where you're like, oh, that guy one-on-one Jaden Daniels, yeah, he'll probably get the job done. Packers, they got 2 now. And 2, I just think Packers O-line versus Commanders D-line is just a big-time mismatch. I don't think outside of schemed-up pressure, and as you said, like they are one of the best at picking those up, because Josh Jacobs is, why they paid him so much money, is one of, if not the best pass protecting back in the league. He sniffs that stuff out. They've been so good at picking it up since he got there. And so I just think he'll have time. I think they'll be able to move the ball on the ground. And if that's the case, I think the Packers win. But obviously, Jaden Daniels factor always has to be accounted for. He is the best player in this game. All right. Time for our locks. Locks are sponsored all season long by Cash App. Making money move should be easy, and that's why there's Cash App. It's fast, safe, and honestly just way more personalized than the other apps out there. We won't be doing our preview show until Friday. That's why we're doing this Thursday preview now. But Kyle will always be giving his locks on Wednesday, because he doesn't do that Friday or Thursday show with us. So Kyle, hit us with them.
Okay, early in the week, I got to go with 2 here. Arizona money line and Buffalo money line. And one that I had on here that you and I, all 3 of us, were talking about earlier in the show. As I said, I kind of want to put something on that Cleveland over, but it's not a lock, for me. These right here, take these to the bank. Go get you something nice for dinner on Monday night after this thing, works out for you.
So it's the Bills at Jets, and that is the Cardinals at home against the Panthers. I feel like you're cheating a little bit with the money line. We gotta regulate how we do these because
You
you
ain't
got to do
cheating,
like
you ain't trying, bud.
within the band because we're doing win-loss record. So this has got to be within the band.
Okay,
of
well
like
then, if
minus
you're
105
if
to
you're
minus
if you're
115.
pointing at me and say I want to see it against the spread, if I were to have to throw a lock against the spread, I'd go Green Bay Packers. What is it? -3.5.
Okay,
There you
good.
go. There's your lock, buddy.
Toss the -3.5.
Go
Put it on the graphic,
Packers.
Jared.
Go Packers.
The Arizona Carolina game might be one of the biggest, like most one-sided matchups when it comes to Arizona offense, Carolina defense. Because man, those linebackers against Jacksonville were not good. They really struggled to defend the run. And now you're playing James Conner and the Cardinals run game, which throws so much at you. This game could get out of hand quickly. And again, the Panthers offense really misses Jalen Coker and misses just his reliability. So if the Cardinals just going to tee off on the Panthers on one side of the ball, this game's going to get out of hand.
Yeah, Panthers are not built without Jalen Coker. If it's just T-Mac, he's going to get a zillion targets, and anytime you target anyone else, it probably isn't going to go great. All right, that's our show. We'll be back Friday, as I said, Friday morning, doing our full preview of the weekend. Until then, thanks so much for tuning in. Keep pushing.